Hello and welcome to the Prestin Sexton podcast. Today we'll be talking about some of our favorite movie franchises and two that we think are overrated.
Yeah, so prepare for some hostility after this.
Yes,
because we're gonna come after some of y'all's favorite franchises.
Yeah, this is true. If you want, you can send hate to our comments section in the YouTube, which I guess just came up yesterday. So this might be a shocker, people, but we are live to our YouTube subscribers. They were worried. Probably.
What do you mean we were live?
We weren't. They probably thought we were dead.
Alive. I think you said live. I'm like, we didn't do a live show.
Well, we're live now. Live show. I'm like, it's you and me and your next door neighbor. More than likely. Well.
So how's it going today, Gabe?
Well, it's pretty damn cold outside. It's colder than a muh out there.
It's ridiculous. I'm getting sick of this weather already.
I got up. I'm like, I hope my truck starts.
I can't walk to class without my face hurting.
I was ice fishing the other week. It would have been week 18 in the NFL, and it was really cold that day. It was minus 10, and we were ice fishing. My whole face was just frosted.
I'm not gonna
beard
lie.
And all.
I've never seen the appeal in ice fishing.
It's kind of fun. It's just something to do.
Like, I don't think people actually ice fish to go ice fishing.
No. It's like, hey, for my favorite friends.
I think they just use ice fishing as an excuse to go out with the boys and just get drunk in an ice house.
What? That doesn't happen. It does.
Like, I've never heard someone say, "Oh, I can't wait to go ice fishing because I want to ice fish."
It's literally the most primal thing I can think of. Like, we were throwing around those little propane canisters for the buddy heaters. We were throwing that like a football. It was like minus 10 outside. We were making like old Big Ben Roethlisberger jokes for like an hour, talking about it's so primal, it's so stupid, but it's fun. Trust me.
All right, should we probably hop into today's topic?
Yeah, today's topic: favorite movie franchises. I'm gonna say my number 5 here, and then I'll let you get your number 5 in. Favorite from when I was a kid: Transformers, folks, by Michael Bay. It would have came out I think in 2008, 2007, but I can tell you this: the 6-year-old, the 5-year-old, whatever age I was at the time, this movie was the coolest thing on the face of the earth to me. Like, robots that are huge and punch each other.
Not just robots. Robots that transform into dope-ass cars.
Yeah, like, people didn't like the new Optimus design where he had, like, the blue flames, and I loved it. I thought that was the coolest shit on the planet. And to me, it got me, I wanted to know more. I wanted to know everything about Transformers, and I remember my dad was like, yeah, it was a cartoon when I was a kid, and
yeah, it's like, I never was really into like Transformers, but that's just because we didn't really watch the movies growing up.
Okay.
Like we watched them like later, but it was just like, yeah, this is good, but it's like I was kind of at that age to like where I wasn't really.
Right, and that's kind of unfortunate because being 6 years old in a movie theater watching that was like mind blowing.
It's like I might have watched it when I was like 11 or 12. It's like I know if I would have watched it when I was 6, I would have been mind blown.
Yeah, I would have been balls to the wall. Like, I'm telling you, it was like watching that was like getting high for the first time. You're like, oh my heavens! You're like, that robot has a sword, and this one, believe it or not, Hugo Weaving is Megatron in that.
Really?
Yes, and he has a bunch of cheesy quotes, but one of my favorites is he's like, is it fear or courage that compels you? Like,
So you said you were like 6 when you first saw it?
I think so.
So was Megan Fox your first crush?
She has gotten so much less hot to me now that she's been with MGK, Machine Gun Kelly. Like, I was reading her engagement rings has like internal thorns. Because love should hurt.
I'm sorry, but that's just messed up. Like, every time you take your ring off, it hurts you. That's just weird.
Dude, I'm telling you, she's gotten so much less hot. She's acting like she's literally the real life Twilight. They are real life Twilight.
They're kind of like a goth version of the Kardashians is what they're turning
They're
into.
awful. He's awful. Like, he's a human cigarette, and she's so hot, and they are acting like a goddamn couple from Twilight. Where they're like, did you see the one where it's like, good love should consist of blood? Was it sex that could make Lucifer grab his rosemary or whatever? Rosary, that's what it was.
I have not heard that.
It was
that just
weird.
And
then like one of them was like organic smoothies. I don't know if you ever watched Stefan on Saturday Night Live with Bill Hader. That's what it made me think of. But God, she's gotten so much less hot to me now. But to tie it all back, 7-year-old me was enamored with her.
That was Gabe's first love.
It's up there. Megan Fox. I'm like, rest in peace. You're for the streets now, man. So bad.
I suppose I can hop into my number 5. My number 5 is one movie that I know you just find overrated, but mine's the Back to the Future franchise. Like, in my opinion, it's just so good. Like,
debatable.
Like a time traveling DeLorean. Like, that's just badass. I don't care what anyone says, and it's just like a fun /funny story, but can also be serious at times.
Maybe. I just don't buy into it, man. I just don't buy into it.
Can't believe it. I still have a hard time believing that.
It's just not for me, man.
Which, I mean, I can understand. It's better than Transformers, but continue.
Optimus would crush that. What if they had a crossover where it was a DeLorean Transformer? That would blow my mind.
Travels.
That would blow my mind.
Transformers, make it happen.
I'm like, please. You're like, robots in disguise. More than meets the eye.
That would actually be sick as hell.
Dude,
you could have it played by Michael J. Fox, voicing it.
That would be so cool.
Like,
I'd have a nerdgasm. I think I would. I'd be like, in the theater.
Gabe would start to, like,
hyperventilate.
It's just this Mandalorian drives up and we're like, what the frick?
DeLorean.
Or DeLorean. I keep saying Mandalorian.
What do you want to talk about, Preston?
But yeah, this like DeLorean just pulls up and it just turns into like a freaking transformer that can time travel. Like, that would be sweet.
That would be so cool. That would be the coolest thing on the goddamn planet.
Michael Bay, make it happen.
Like, Michael Bay, please.
I will watch your franchise if that happens.
I'm on my knees. We're on our knees, Michael Bay.
All right, you want to hop into your number 4?
Number 4, John Wick. Again, it's just so cool. It's a cool movie, and it's very realistic action. There's all these little nuances to it. Like, there's no business can be conducted at the Continental. There's a bunch of characters, bunch of big actors, and also small actors that like really give it their all. And if you really want to look at it, you could honestly say these movies revived Keanu Reeves' career for sure.
They kind of revived the whole action.
Well, they made it different.
They like the action movie genre. It kind of revived it.
I would agree.
'Cause, like, before like the more John Wicks have been coming out, what was the last big action movie?
Well, I get like just a normal like shoot 'em.
Yeah.
I trying to think because John Wick came out in like 2013, 2014, I think.
Yeah, and it's like the Expendables was huge, but it wasn't really that well received.
Yeah, like John Wick is actually critically and commercially
it's like
acclaimed.
I think it kind of revived the whole action movie genre.
Well, you see, here's the interesting part is that it's directed by a guy that was Keanu Reeves' stunt double in The Matrix. So like all the action scenes are they feel very realistic and...
Wait, Keanu Reeves has a stunt double, huh? I figured he was one that did his own stunts.
I swear his name is like Chad Sackhoff.
Of course his name's Chad.
It's Chad. But like he directed the original John Wick. And so like the action is so cool in those movies.
Yeah, it is. I haven't seen all of them. I've seen a lot of parts of them. But yeah, for the action scenes I've seen, it's great choreography.
To me, it's some of the coolest moves. Maybe one of the coolest movies where you could watch and be like, God, that guy's so badass. Like all the time they're like, oh, it's John Wick. And they always just go, oh. And they're screwed. There's nothing they can do. He's unstoppable.
Actually, I can't say that that there wasn't really much for action, because I guess Kingsman kind of...
I guess that came out about the same time as John Wick.
I suppose, like, the Mission Impossibles, and you still had, like, the Ocean's 11 stuff coming.
I wouldn't say that was action. Ocean's 11 is a little more heisty.
Yeah, I suppose. And then, of course, like, the James Bond's movies. So I can't say it probably revived the genre, because...
It gave it something different.
New
life. That's a good way to put it. But it's kind of interesting, though, because Kingsman does come out at the same time. And those are two very, very different ways of telling a action story. To me. To me, they seem very different.
Yeah, so I'm just going to hop right into my number 4. I got Indiana Jones.
Okay, classic.
This is one franchise we seem to just keep bringing up every episode. So I'm just going to keep it brief. Indiana Jones, badass. Harrison Ford's a national treasure.
Yeah, those movies are, like, they're great for just about any age, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like, I know, like, 8-year-old Preston was in love with the Indiana Jones movies, and 21-year-old Preston is still in love with the Indiana Jones movies.
There's not a better movie to watch, like, just series. Like, those, we should at some point make an episode of, like, movies that you think are just essential to watch. And for me, Indiana Jones is up there.
Oh, yeah. It's like Raiders is an essential watch.
It's a classic.
It's like, I like The Last Crusade better, but Raiders is, like, the one everyone has to watch at least.
Yeah, I agree. And Temple of Doom is okay. Crystal Skulls.
Mid.
Crystal Skulls, good. Overhated.
Mid.
Overhated. It's overhated. But those are movies that, like, you watch, okay.
They're just a fun watch.
Like Han Solo. Who do you think is more iconic, Han Solo or Indiana Jones?
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones had his own movie franchise.
Well, Han Solo has his own movie. It's a solo movie
Harrison
about
Ford.
Solo. No, it's not.
It's not Harrison Ford, so it's like... I always say Indiana Jones a little more iconic character, and like the character that defines Harrison Ford. Everyone's like, actors who will be always defined by that one character, and people will say Han Solo. It's like, no, Indiana Jones.
He's more, I feel like he's more Indiana Jones. Like, he fits him more. He liked
Indiana Jones more.
He actually does not like playing Han Solo. I always think that's funny. He's like, I don't like it.
Well, I don't think it's that he doesn't like it. It's that he felt that his character arc was done, so he wanted to end the character.
Which I would agree, but Indiana Jones is, like, you watch those, and there's, it's just so cool. I keep saying, like, they're so cool, but you could watch Indiana Jones no matter how old you are, and like, okay, this has something in it for me. I like this.
Who doesn't want to see Harrison Ford mowing down Nazis? Like, that's just great.
Like, who came up with this idea? George Lucas, perhaps? It's so cool. Those movies are so kick-ass.
We need a new Indiana Jones movie in video game.
I need it now. I need it coursing through my veins. I need it streamlined into me. Yeah, I tell you, there's just nothing better than watching Indiana Jones movies, man.
Well, there's a couple.
There's a couple.
Couple more franchises that I have.
I like them. I really do like those movies.
Right, you want to hop into your number? Would it be 3 now?
It'd be number 3. So I have The Matrix, which I know a few episodes ago I said is a little overrated. As a franchise, I went back and watched them over winter break. Big fan of it. I'm a big fan now.
I was supposed to say, the only issue I have with The Matrix is that it's one really good movie and then a bunch of
they go off the rails, and it kind of takes a lot of thinking to really figure it out.
It's like, I love the first Matrix movie, but everything after that I kind of felt was like, I was kind of felt indifferent about them.
I remember my dad telling me when he went to go see the movie, he's like, I kind of understood it. But he goes, there were so many people that had no goddamn clue what was going on.
It's definitely one of those movies you have to watch multiple times.
Yeah, you gotta watch it, I think,
before
like
getting
2-3 times.
Really good idea on it. It's kind of like Inception that way.
It's kind of interesting because The Matrix is like, you know, it's your, like you would say, an online personality.
Yeah.
And as we go forward, like you have the metaverse. I'm sure you know what that is, but
yes.
Like it's kind of interesting that The Matrix is kind of playing out. Not that it's like, oh, we're real and we're plugged into a machine and whatnot, but like I actually think it makes a lot more sense now just because of the whole online persona type deal. So it just makes more sense now.
It's what I will say, the first Matrix movie is one of the best sci-fi movies of all time.
It's so confusing. It can be.
Yeah, but it's also just so interesting.
I like there's like this philosophical bit to it too, where it's like, well, fate versus destiny.
Yeah.
Or choice, I should say.
Or it kind of has the whole whole free will thing going for it.
Like I actually think the Oracle is one of the coolest characters because she like actively knows what's gonna happen, but she doesn't tell him. Like, oh, she knows he's the one, but she has to make him believe he's the one, so that way Neo is actually the one.
Yeah, because you can't just tell someone they're the one, because then they'll never unlock their true potential.
Right, like the part where
Anakin Skywalker.
Exactly. Is he the chosen one?
It's like he grew up being told he was the chosen one. So he always had that mindset that, hey, I'm the chosen one. So he kind of had like that.
I have to do things better.
Or that not even really that. It's that his actions didn't have consequences. Like if you watch the Clone Wars series, that's pretty evident.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So it's like, well, I'm the chosen one. What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to bring balance to the Force, so I'm just going to be reckless.
Dude, you know damn well. You know what? No, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to get the explicit label again.
Just go. Just say it.
Dude, I have reasonable evidence to think that Padme had some... She had some lovin'. Like, you know damn well. I'm like...
What? What do you mean? What does lovin' mean?
I'm trying not to get the explicit label, man.
Just
skirting around it.
Just say it.
Dude, that Padme ad Mussy was probably top tier.
Oh, Jesus.
Dude, I'm just saying. Like, he literally would have he was turning his back on the Order for her, man.
It's like, I get a kick out of, like, the whole Jedi Council. It's like, oh, yeah, they're so wise. They're like...
They're awful.
They're like, here, Anakin, you're going to be assigned to protect this senator. So just don't fall in love, okay? And that senator's Natalie Portman.
He's like, hey, do not fall for this MILF. He's like, I won't.
She wasn't even a MILF at the time.
Dude, she was mommy. She was full-on mommy at that time.
They told a teenager with hormones running through his body, like, hey, you just protect Natalie Portman, but just don't fall in love, okay? Or don't catch feelings. It's like, what? Yoda, you're supposed to be wise, but you thought this was a good idea.
That'd be like sending me on a mission to protect Haley Steinfeld, and they're like, do not have feelings for her.
Do not catch feelings at all. It's like,
she's like, hey, I put on this space bikini. I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, damn, I would literally turn my back on the Order for this. I would turn my back on the Jedi Order for Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
It's like, okay, do I want to be a space wizard whose only life revolves around the Order? Or do I want to be with Haley Steinfeld? It's not that hard to get.
I'm like,
Because I still get to keep the lightsaber if I leave.
Yeah, I'm like, I still get to use the Force. I'm just not in your little cult. Like, oh, boo-hoo.
Which I'm going to talk about the Jedi Order in a couple minutes, because Star Wars eventually is going to be on this list. I just want to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I will happily break that down. But
suppose I could hop into my number 3.
I was just going to ask real quick here. Like, we talk, like, Neo is a chosen one, and so is Anakin / Luke, obviously.
Yeah.
Who do you think, like, if you had to name your top 3 chosen ones, who would it be and why in movies?
I'd have to say Anakin / Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
I think that's kind of like the original hero's journey arc in movies.
Well, yeah,
in cinema.
Because you have Beowulf, actually. That's the original hero's journey.
I'm talking about
like hero's journey's been around for.
I gotta go with what's his name in Dune. I'm sorry, I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw it with Gavin. You didn't go to.
Was it Paul? His name was Paul.
Yeah, Paul and
Timothy
Dune,
Chalamet.
I really enjoyed it, but I'm not gonna put him on the top 3 yet because he's only had one movie.
Yeah, you can't have like one movie.
I'd have to. I'm not a big fan of the movies, but you gotta have Harry Potter on there.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
iconic.
I don't like the movies, but I can respect them.
You respect the game.
Yeah.
Respect the game.
And then after that, I can't think of any at the top of my head.
Would you pick Frodo?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Frodo.
Okay, I figured you would. I'm like, I'll toss this one out there.
Even though I got some opinions on Frodo.
Ooh, he's got some opinions on him. If I had to pick my top 3, I think it's kind of similar. I think you got to go Neo at 3, just because he's such an interesting philosophical journey for him to go down. That should be my Halloween next year's. I should dress as Neo. Anywho, number 2, I think you got to have Harry Potter, and then you got to have like Luke Skywalker / Anakin Skywalker, whichever one you actually believe is the chosen one. Debate. Yeah. That's a debate.
I still think it's Anakin Skywalker. Because, his whole thing was bringing balance to the Force. And even when he fell as a Jedi, at the end, like the ending of him being Darth Vader, he still brought balance to the Force.
He brought balance to himself, which...
And the Force, like, he just...
Right.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at it, like, he is a physical manifestation of the Force.
Yeah. He's literally Space Jesus.
Yeah, he's Space Jesus.
He was conceived by the Force.
Right. That's what's kind of funny is, like, the chosen ones, very much like Jesus in that sort of way. Because Jesus is the chosen one.
Yeah, Jesus.
You're a little more red on that than I am, but...
What do you mean red?
Like, Catholic and religious.
That's basically what Jesus was.
Yeah.
He was the chosen one, the one chosen by God.
Right. Like, you look at Anakin Skywalker, I'm like, oh, he's Space Jesus.
And that's why all these chosen one arcs, they always kind of have them not, like, resemble Christ, but, like, mirror Christ in a way. Or have always, like, short little nods or, like, hey, this, like, they're similar in ways, a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like I said, like,
there's
Anakin,
a lot of
Anakin,
imagery.
for example, wasn't conceived by a father, was conceived by the Force.
Right.
And the Force is kind of like the god of Star Wars, in a way.
And what's funny about it is, like, you could look at, okay, the chosen ones we have. Like, let's think of religious, like, sort of callbacks or references. Like, Harry Potter actually dies and is resurrected.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much more obvious than that.
Yeah.
And Neo is, like, kind of has that sort of religious vibe to him, in a way, of Messiah type.
Also, can he walk on water? Is that a thing?
He could fly. Neo could fly.
Okay. I was like, I couldn't remember if Neo could walk on water.
He could do a lot of different things, but to me, it's okay.
Who's the chosen ones of? Who's like the chosen one in Transformers? I thought don't they kind of have like a chosen one?
Not really. No.
Not really. Okay.
There's like the matrix of leadership.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. It's a nightmare, but okay. Well, I'll let you get into yours.
Third.
Yeah.
I got Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
In my opinion, probably like the best movie franchise of all time, just because of how like.
The Hobbit, though.
See, that's why I have the Lord of the Rings franchise.
You're like, we don't associate.
I don't associate. Like, The Hobbit aren't bad movies by any means, but it's like they're such a step down from Lord of the Rings.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like, I love these movies. Yes, they're long. Yes, there's a lot of walking. But You know, the whole, like, all the action's great. You know, you got the Return of the King, where Aragorn, I always pronounce his name wrong. But I love his character arc, you know, from just a ranger to, like, the king.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hence the Return of the King. Oh, the cinematography, the special effects for, like, early 2000s holds up very, very, very well. Like, they look like they could still be special effects used today. And it's like, that's just amazing to me, because then you watch movies like that came out around the same time period, like the Spider-Man movies, like the Raimi Spider-Man movies.
They're a little janky.
And now it's like, ooh, those effects weren't great. But like, the Lord of the Rings is like, oh my god, these effects are still amazing. You got the score, the music score is one of my favorites in all of cinema. The actors, like, I couldn't see anyone else playing them. Like, Orlando Bloom, couldn't see anyone else playing Legolas. John Rhys Davis, couldn't see anyone playing Gimli. And you got like acting legends like Christopher Lee, Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
And Carl Urban.
It's like they have in my opinion, one of the best villains in Sauron. Like, in terms of like I saw a post. It's like, who were like the 4 most just evil, straight up just evil villains in cinema? I think you have to have Sauron in that list. Like, yeah, that guy's just the epitome of evil.
Like, dude's just evil, man.
Yeah, it's like in a way, it's like I kind of like some, like, when like villains have like are more broken in a way.
Like Kylo Ren-esque.
Like Kylo Ren or like Thanos. But in a way, I also like it when they're just pure evil.
Right. I think, like, the best villains you can kind of identify with, like Mike Zimmer, villain. He's an evil villain. Evil villain. That's funny. That was a good one.
Yeah. But it's like, in a way, it's just like sometimes you just need a villain who's evil just because he's evil. Yeah.
That's like Darth Vader is kind of... Oh, look at the Emperor versus Darth Vader.
It's like, yeah, I was about to say, I wouldn't say Darth Vader's evil. I'd more base Palpatine just as pure evil.
Yeah, that dude's evil as hell. Like, what is his motivations? You're like, he just wants to be a dick.
He just wanted to be a Sith.
He's like, I just want to take over the whole thing.
Have you like read Emperor Palpatine's like origin?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he just was like, you know what? I'm sick of being just a rich noble. I'm just gonna kill my family.
He's like, shit, true. He's like, shit, true.
It's like, huh.
Right, that's why I'm like, that dude's like, a little more pure evil on that side, and Darth Vader's more of like, okay, he's broken.
He's a broken character.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I just love Lord of the Rings. I do have a kind of a hot take, though. It's like, yes, Frodo's like the chosen one, but let's be honest, Sam was kind of the real hero of Lord of the Rings.
Well, here's the thing, is you need a guy that can be on the poster.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, because what exactly did, Frodo got corrupted by the ring when it came to throw it into Mount Doom. He couldn't walk up Mount Doom. Like, he couldn't traverse it because he was unable to, so Sam had to carry him up. You know, he was the one always getting stabbed. Yeah. I think he gets stabbed like 8 different times and has to be saved. Probably. It's like, Sam, in a way, is kind of the real, like, hero. It's like, because he ends up being the one to help Frodo throw it into Mount Doom. The ring never corrupted him. He always stood by Frodo's side, even when Frodo basically told him to fuck off.
Yeah. Oh, you dropped the F-bomb this time. Yeah, wasn't me.
It's like...
Well, now we're going off the rails. We got the explicit. I'm doing whatever.
It's like... So in a way, it's like... Sam's kind of the unspoken hero of Lord of the Rings. But Frodo gets all the credit. Frodo's the one that gets to go adventuring. It's like... I don't know. I just love these movies.
I agree, actually. I think that's a good take because Frodo is the hero, but Samwise is the real hero.
Yeah, who doesn't get the credit.
Yeah, some people don't get the credit they deserve sometimes, that's for sure.
Because like I said, Frodo ended up getting corrupted by the ring.
He did. And
Sam never let the ring corrupt him.
no, like he really, you think about him, like he did a lot of different shit in that movie.
And like I said,
movies,
Frodo, the ring would have fallen into the hands of Sauron if Sam didn't carry Frodo up the mountain.
This is true. This is true. You're right. That does drive me nuts if people think Frodo is kind of the hero in that story.
Yeah.
Like, he's not.
It's like he's one of the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
But to call him the hero...
The chosen one.
It's like...
Like, I don't think he was the chosen one. I think he was the one chosen.
He was one of the chosen ones.
Right. Like, that's a good way to put it. Because you can make a
case that the whole fellowship of the ring is the chosen ones.
Yeah, those are the best warriors people have to send, and it
Plus,
works.
I'm like, even the comedy in that movie, like, there's not a lot of comedy in it, but when they do, it's perfect.
Just works.
Like, whenever Legolas takes down the elephant and kills all those enemies, and Gimli looks at him, well, it only counts as one.
Yeah.
Like, that cracks me up every time.
It's a great franchise. It's something that I feel like people our age are really into.
Peter Jackson, just props to you, my guy.
Yeah.
Like when people who read the books say the movies are just as good as the books, you know you did a hell of a job.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think those had a very big opportunity to be bad.
And I think with like Peter Jackson, like his idea, he didn't want to change really a whole lot from the books because he knows that just people wouldn't like it then.
Mm-hmm.
So he kept everything really, really as close to the books as he could get. And like that guy did his research. I think he kept saying, like, I think it's been known that he's read the book dozens of times before before publishing the movie because he wanted to get it right.
That makes sense. I think that's a good way to do it justice.
It's like you see people nowadays in movie franchises that you can tell just don't like get to know the franchise before making movies. Like you can see this in Star Wars. Like Filoni, Favreau obviously know the franchise.
They're nerds about it.
They know, like, they keeping EU stuff. They're like kind of bringing back EU stories. So you know that they're familiar with the non-canon EU.
Right.
They have the comics. They have like you can tell they know what they're doing. But Rian Johnson, you can't tell me that he was
the whole hyperspace thing. The holdo, like
it's like
blowing
or even
a ship.
What's J.J. Abrams like? You can tell that they didn't quite do the research they needed.
You ever like watch some of the gallery on Disney Plus with?
I watched the Mandalorian gallery.
Yes, and it's kind of interesting to hear Filoni talk about how he managed to take over a little bit of Star Wars franchise from George Lucas, and he's like, he's exactly how you think he would be.
Yeah, it's like I love that Favreau and Filoni are in charge of like the creative department because I'm not one of the ones that say fire Kathleen Kennedy.
No, I just think they don't understand it.
My opinion on Kathleen Kennedy is that she's really good on like, you know, the money side, the business side of it, and then Favreau and Filoni are good on the creative side. But if I was Lucasfilms, you know, I'd keep Kathleen Kennedy, keep her as kind of like the head of Lucasfilms, but I'd almost give her no power in like the creative decision.
Say,
I would kind of have like Favreau and Filoni be like the creative guys.
Well, that's the thing.
And then like they hire the directors, they hire everything else like that, which I think they might have the power right now. I don't know if they do.
I'm not really sure because they've certainly gotten bigger than Kathleen Kennedy.
Like,
at least it feels that way.
Like I kind of like the whole. Like I don't think Favreau and Filoni should be like directing everything. It's like because that's what the MCU does very well. Is that they have like kind of like the three main guys that are kind of, you know, like the creative decisions, but they also hire independent directors who are allowed to do their own thing.
Okay.
It's like that's why I think Star Wars has kind of started doing because like you look at the Mandalorian, like Like, obviously, Favreau and Filoni say, okay, well, you need to make sure you at least incorporate this, this, and this into your story. But, like, they bring in guys like Taika Waititi and are like, okay, we want you to incorporate this, this, and this, but we also want you to direct, like...
Your movie.
Right. Or your episode.
I agree.
And I think that's just kind of something you have to do. Because Favreau and Filoni are great, but they shouldn't be the only ones putting their vision out there.
Right, because everyone has great ideas, and it's good to have a few creative minds all together. Because
they've brought in some really good directors these last few years to be there on like their shows. Like Robert Rodriguez, you might not like the Book of Boba Fett.
I like the Book of Boba Fett.
I do, and I think most people do. Robert Rodriguez has done pretty well for both The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. I thought, you got Taika Waititi, who's done some stuff for The Mandalorian and is supposedly getting his own Disney movie, or his own Star Wars movie, which I'm really excited for.
That'll be good.
Taika Waititi is one of my favorite directors in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You got, of course, Jon Favreau and Filoni are going to be directing. And then you got, like, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yep, Bryce Dallas Howard.
She does a great job. I know on hers. On her episodes, she's done great. And even guys like Peyton Reed, who did the Ant-Man films.
Yep.
He's gotten a few episodes in The Mandalorian. All his are good. It's like... So, like, I kind of like this whole, bringing in directors to, like, put their own vision out there, because you kind of get, like, a new feel for every episode.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stray too far away from the other episodes, because you still have Favreau and Filoni making these, keep making decisions to connect them.
Well, speaking of straying too far away, I'll get into my number 2 here. I have Indiana Jones, of course, which we already talked about, but it's just one of those things where, again, you should watch it no matter how old, no matter what gender or whatever. I just think it's one of those movies that you watch and it just doesn't get old.
Like not at all.
No. And, like, there's always some underrated quotes. Like, it's not the years, it's the mileage. Personal favorite.
She's like 40 years younger than you. Well, I'm just a man like everyone else.
Classic. Rest in peace, Sean Connery. But yeah, Indiana Jones, that's a movie where I feel like if you want to know the real Gabriel, like, you gotta watch those movies, man. We should watch those together at some point, because we always talk about them so much. We've never seen them together, at least. But yeah, I do like Indiana Jones. Love Harrison Ford. It's hard not to.
National treasure.
He kicks ace. Kicks a lot of ace.
The guy's the epitome of cool.
He just, like, he kind of stumbled into being a Hollywood actor. He was a carpenter before, and he's like, I kind of just wanted being carpenter.
He's like, and then he's like, I'm gonna move to California because this acting thing seems pretty cool.
Yeah, he, like, accidentally, he was in Apocalypse Now, and then he's the guy that says, with extreme prejudice. That's it. That's his only scene in the movie. And then he's
one of the
Han
most
Solo.
iconic lines in the movie.
Yeah, I'm like that. Like, out of all of them, besides maybe Charlie Don't Surf, but which, if you don't know what that means, it doesn't make any sense. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I do like Indiana Jones, and we've already talked about it, but I'll just have you get into your number 2.
My number 2 is the MCU, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
See, okay, you go ahead with yours, and I'll have my counter-argument as to why I didn't include it on mine.
I mean, just as a whole, like, there's been no, like, except maybe to Star Wars, there's been no, like, cinematic universe that's been as in-depth as the MCU. Like, what is it now, 30 movies and TV shows?
Yeah, probably
something like that.
Mid-30s. Should we try and count them?
No.
We'd be here for another 10 minutes.
But it's like, yeah, there's like a lot of ones that aren't good, but there's also a lot of them that are just like peak fiction.
Peak fiction, yeah.
It's like almost all the movies I think are enjoyable.
That is something. Okay, I love that you brought that up, because I rewatched the Eternals on
Disney
Tuesday
Plus,
on Disney Plus and I was like, I think it's just okay. My dad said the same thing. He's like, well, whether you like them or don't like them, they're always entertaining.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is like something that a lot of is just something movie franchises a lot of time have an issue with. Like they always seem to either be hit or miss. Like, it's rather you like them or you just hate them. Well, with the MCU, it's like you can't really hate any of them because they're all enjoyable in a way. And like the world building, they just changed cinema.
For people like I talked with my dad on Tuesday about like some people don't like Captain Marvel, and I'm like, okay, it's not a bad movie, but it's entertaining.
It's like, those people who don't like Captain Marvel,
they're like, it's too woke.
Dislike it for the wrong reasons.
They're like, oh, it's too #woke bae for me.
It's like, the reason I'm not the biggest fan of the Captain Marvel character isn't because of Brie Larson. I actually really like Brie Larson. But it's like, I just don't know if they got the casting right.
Some of it, yeah. I don't think she should have been Captain Marvel.
She looks the part, but she doesn't act the part.
No, she's like, have you ever watched any of her other movies? She's kind of mid.
It's mid. Like, she's kind of like that weird dry humor.
Yeah, it would be...
who kind of comes off as uptight and, well, whenever... It's like, I think they wrote the character wrong and the direction of the character went wrong in Marvel. Because it's like, she kind of is like...
She's a little too Tony Stark.
She's a little too Tony Stark minus, like, the likability almost.
Yeah, like, they did not make a likable character. I wouldn't say, like, the
likability, like, what's it called whenever you kind of just have that presence that make people like you.
She doesn't have a good vibe.
Yeah.
I'll just go with that. I don't like her vibes, man. I still like her vibes.
It's like we're kind of, like, her and Tony Stark are very similar, but they're also very different. Because, like,
you're not designed to like Tony Stark.
Yeah, but he has, like,
he has an arc. He does have a good character arc.
I'm gonna get the word. I'm gonna get the right word. I was just talking about it in a TikTok comment section, so I'm gonna try and find the comment.
Keyboard warrior. Keyboard warrior. I will say this though, like, you're not designed to like Tony Stark, but the thing is, like, Captain Marvel, I think charismatic. Okay, it's good. Like, that's a good one.
It's like Robert Downey, like, Iron Man is like kind of like a dick, but he's also like a very charismatic character. He's funny. He kind of has that good vibe to him.
Yeah.
To where Captain Marvel comes off as like stuck up.
Better than you.
It's like she acts like she's better than you. Because I mean, she probably is.
Oh, right.
But she doesn't has the charisma.
She doesn't have it.
Iron Man did.
I'm with you on that.
It's like, I have nothing against the character at all.
Me neither.
Like, I like the character, but I think it's almost like she kind of gives me, like, I kind of dislike her for the same reason I like Superman. Like, I dislike Superman. Like, the OP god who doesn't lose just kind of is a hard character to relate with.
I think they tried to make her a little more relatable by making her like, okay, she's this pilot in the army, and
it's like, I'm not the target audience.
No, and I think it's cool. I do think it's cool to have women on screen in superhero movies,
and it's definitely something that Marvel has started doing right the last few years.
Yeah,
it's like they're getting their representation instead of just the main lead being a guy named Chris.
Right. It's not some white dude, And again, and I'm not like, oh, well, they should make
every character.
Yeah, that does. I did notice though there is some sort of trend where they take ginger characters and make them.
Yeah, I always get a kick out of that. They're like, okay, we gotta be more inclusive, so we're gonna make some white characters like black. And, like, you look at them all, they're all gingers.
Yeah.
Like MJ.
MJ, yeah. What was another one I was thinking of? Oh, they made Domino. Do you ever watch Deadpool? Yeah. They made her Zazie Beetz in... Okay, and I thought it was neat because she had... Originally in the comics, she was white and she had, like, the black Domino.
Well, they kind of did the reverse.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool, actually.
It's like, I always get a kick out of that, how they always make the ginger characters, they only change the race of ginger characters.
That's so weird. I don't understand.
Like, who are some other ones? Like, I know there's a lot.
Barry Allen, Iris.
Oh, yeah?
That was another one. I don't know a ton, but I know there's...
I'm going to pull it up, because it's a huge...
It's a weird thing, right? Like, that just seems to be the go-to.
Because I know that they're doing it in DC now, too.
Are they?
I think Batwoman.
Yeah, Batwoman. She was Barbara Gordon or whatever, and then she's now black. I think she's black.
Wasn't Poison Ivy also a race change?
Poison Ivy. I don't know if she was race changed, but she was definitely a redhead.
Okay, here's the full list. Wally West and Iris West.
True.
Mary Jane. Starfire. Heimdall.
Yeah.
Hot Girl. And that's just a few in comic book movies.
Okay, but Heimdall, Idris Elba as Heimdall makes sense.
Such a great.
Oh yeah, that's
it's like
inevitable.
I'm not the kind of person that's like, oh, why are you race changing everyone? Because most of the time they get it right. Like Samuel L. Jackson. I think people tend to forget that Nick Fury was actually a white guy.
Yeah, he really was.
In the comics. But they were like, no, Samuel L. Jackson will play a very good... Like, I think Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of the character is way bigger than the comic book portrayal.
And
it's one casting they knocked out of the park.
You know, and speaking of people of color's representation in cinema, and we were talking about Idris Elba, I think he should be the next James Bond.
I disagree with you there.
What? No, you can't.
I think it should be Henry Cavill.
Yeah, that's true. But
I think he's a little old.
Idris?
And I think that's one character that's kind of hard to race swap.
I think they should let him do it.
It's like them making James like a female James Bond. I don't think it works.
I think that should be the next step.
Like,
if you really want to go down that route.
I think that you could do like a female James Bond movie. But I don't think they should have like the 007 code name. I think they should be like. I think you could do like a spy movie in the James Bond universe, but I don't think you could have a female be 007. I think it should almost be a spin-off. Because I think like the big thing with James Bond is that, well, he's kind of hard. I'm trying to think of the word. He's like a ladies' man type thing, you know?
Yeah.
Super charismatic, you know, he can get with any woman type thing. And I think that's a big part of the character, and I don't think you should change that.
I just think Idris Elba would be a great James
Idris
Bond.
Elba would be.
Because you have to have some sort of grace along with...
Yeah.
And I think he just has that.
It's like, I think he would do great, but I also think that you should maybe stick to the source material more for James Bond, just because of how big of character he is.
I know, but do you really want to see like the 10th white dude play James Bond?
To be honest, I think we've almost had way too many Bond movies at this point.
I know. Like you were talking about charismatic ladies, man. I'm like, Daniel Craig does not fit that bill for me.
No.
I just don't see it.
I think I'd be down for Idris Elba, James Bond.
I'm talked you into it.
I think so.
Be something different.
Just the only thing. A black guy running around with the name James Bond. Like, that's just a white name.
That's racist. I've seen racism, and that's racism.
Like, I don't know. I just have a hard time thinking like, oh,
what would you change it to?
I don't know. But I don't
say
know.
something
It's
even
like,
more racist.
It's like, it's kind of like Paul George. Whenever I think of the name Paul George, I don't think of the basketball player.
Chris Paul.
Like, I'm sorry, those are white names.
Like, what would you prefer him to be? Like LeBron Bond?
No, like, you could keep James Bond, but I just feel kind of weird.
It's just LeBond. LeBond. That's
like,
racist. That was a racist comment.
That might sound bad, but that just sounds like a white guy.
racism. Okay,
But
here's
yes, I'm down for an Idris Elba James Bond movie.
this was the argument I was going to make before we got off track here. I think the MCU is not a franchise in my mind. I think, and this is, I know, right?
What?
They're just
Definitely
something.
a franchise.
They're just something else almost entirely. There's something else. There's something unlike anything we've ever seen. I think they are the westerns of our time, in a way. The MCU is. I really think it's its own genre of films more than its own franchise.
You know what my only thing is when people compare it to westerns is that, yeah, there were like the western genre was big and then it kind of died.
It was there for about 30 years.
It's like with comic book movies, it's like with the MCU, like they're all connected and continue to world build to where like westerns back in like the 60s and 70s were like one-offs. And they didn't have a big connected universe that builds the universe.
John Wayne.
And that's why they
EU.
That's kind of why they died off. Is that it's like, oh, you're kind of seeing the same story over and over and over and over again. To where, like, the MCU, they continue to world build. They pop out different things, you know, it's all one big connected universe. To where it's just wasn't for Westerns.
I guess to me, I don't consider it a franchise just because I think it's something much bigger. I think it's something, again, that, like, I don't think there's anyone out there that doesn't have an opinion on Marvel films.
Yeah, and it's like they're just so huge now.
Again, yeah, I'm like,
you
would have to live under a rock.
It's like it's kind of hard to believe that in the 90s comic book movies weren't really a thing.
They were a joke. They were a little joke.
And now in just like a 20-year span, they're now like the biggest thing in cinema.
It's kind of crazy.
Really, they weren't huge up until like 12 years ago.
Not really. It feels like it didn't.
The X-Men was pretty big, but it didn't skyrocket till Iron Man came out.
X-Men really kind of laid the groundwork, in my opinion. Same thing with Spider-Man.
They walked so they could run.
Yeah.
It's like they were huge, but it wasn't really its own genre.
No, it was something different. I'm like, well, this is actually pretty well. Same thing with the Spider-Man movies. I'm like, okay, they're okay now, whatever. But yeah, there's something else almost entirely, and I really do think this is our generation's like Star Wars, even though we have Star Wars now.
But it's not like it used to be.
It's
like you know it's bad, like. It's like Star Wars was so big, but Marvel has jumped it in 10 years.
That's unheard of.
Like,
which one do you think will last longer, Star Wars or Marvel? I think Star Wars.
I think in the long run, Star Wars will, because like it's had a fan base since the 80s.
Not even since the 70s.
Since the 70s, I should say, and it's like Star Wars fans will always at least like. Once you're a Star Wars fan, you're pretty much always a Star Wars fan.
You're locked in for life.
Yeah, it's like we're Marvel fans. It's like
it's kind of today's flavor.
Yeah,
sometimes feels like
it's like so in the long run, I think Star Wars will be more built just because I think there's more source material.
There's a lot going.
And I mean, yeah, it's like Marvel has the comics, but the comics aren't all source material because you can only tell one story per character.
That's true. Yeah.
So like while there's like 800 like there's hundreds of different Spider-Man stories, you can only tell one.
And sometimes they are a little bit predictable, whereas Star Wars you're like, I don't know what's going to happen.
And it's like, you know, Star Wars still has the comics coming out today. I think some that are canon to the current Star Wars universe. And I don't know, just space wizards. It's like space wizards and lightsabers will never not be cool.
I guess that's why, to me, Star Wars, I don't know about you, but Star Wars is my number one franchise.
It's also mine.
So, yeah, I think you guys could probably tell if you've been listening for a while, but just, like I said, it's kind of hard to rank, like, Star Wars and the MCU as a franchise because there's something else.
So big.
Like, you think of franchise, you think, like, 4 or 5 movies. I'm like, no, Star Wars is
9 or 10 movies with Solo and Rogue One.
Would be 11 actually.
6, 9, 10. Yeah, it's 11.
Yeah, math not your strong suit, huh, buddy?
And you got the TV shows, the Clone Wars, which is 7 seasons. Rebels, which is 3 seasons?
4, I think.
4 seasons.
It's okay.
Mandalorian's just fit.
It's 8 hours, 16 hours.
3. Will be starting its 3rd season.
He's coming back.
Book of Boba Fett's just started its 1st season. You're gonna have the Ahsoka TV show coming Kenobi.
I'm so hyped for that.
Then you have the comics. Like they have comics that are canon to the Star Wars universe. It's like you can do so much with Star Wars because George Lucas.
I think he's coming back.
I don't think so.
I think he is.
He's never left.
It's weird because
he was always
he's there. Like he's there on set.
You need George Lucas there because he's the one who told this original story.
I think before he dies, I think they should let him do one. They should let him do one movie.
I don't. Okay, here's the. It might be a hot take, but I don't want George Lucas completely in charge of a movie because we've seen what happens when that happens.
I guess, but I'm saying they should let him go in his own creative direction.
Yeah, he should write the story, but I don't want him going anywhere near the dialogue, cinematography, or anything like that. Because then you'll just get another episode 1. You'll get another Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, and one of the things I talked about this with my dad too when we were talking about the Marvel movies, but we talked about one of the things with the prequels people tend to forget is that it opened the whole Star Wars universe wide open.
Yeah, it's like up to that point you really had the EU, which was
you had to read. Canon, that was old fashioned. You had to read that. Kind
of canon, but not really canon, and that's it. That's all you had. When you got when the prequels came out, you started a whole new era. You built up on characters that were already there, that were already
you have to get to an endpoint with a completely new set of characters.
Yeah.
Besides Obi-Wan, but
and then Anakin. But even then, Anakin wasn't a built-on character.
To me, Anakin is a new character because, we talk about Anakin. We don't really see Anakin.
It's like they took all these
in the original
characters and completely rebuilt their character. Like Kenobi, you didn't see much of Kenobi in the original trilogy. You didn't learn much from the character. Well, you learned so much from the prequels.
He's just badass in general.
Then they added that they made a whole complete Jedi Order. They finally kind of gave you the story of the Jedi, which they'll still continue because I'm hoping for an Old Republic series or movie.
You know what I was
franchise where they kind of go back to the beginning of the Jedi Order and just completely give you all new characters. You no longer have the Skywalker saga because I think we've kind of seen enough of the Skywalkers for now, and just getting a whole new, fresh look at Star Wars without having connections to all these characters that we've came to know will be good for it because now you can just completely restart.
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, this was an idea I had laying in my bed last night. What if they had a Keanu Reeves as a younger Count Dooku before, and then he realizes everything's gonna happen? Because you never really get the whole story with Dooku as to what happened.
But you have, because they have comics. Kind of.
Well, then let the comics play out.
That's the only thing is that I don't like is that I think you start if Lucasfilms was in its best interest, they'd release all the canon comics for free. So people can actually learn what's going on, because they have they've told the whole story of Count Dooku in the comics. That's canon,
right? And there's
but
the
it's
whole book.
Nobody knows it because
Jedi Lost.
It's a comic that you can't find now.
You can't buy it.
You can't buy it because they're not reprinting them. So I think if Lucasfilms was in their best interest, they'd release Of course, you can't release the new ones for free, the new stuff coming out. But go back the last 5, every comic that came out that's canon came out in 5 years or later should probably be
free to the public.
You should be able to read it for free. I think
that's a good idea. Actually,
that's would be in the best interest for Lucasfilms because then you wouldn't have to continue to explain yourself. You could release those, everyone can read them, they can get caught up with what's canon, what's not, because when they made the EU definitely not canon, like when they said no, it's not canon, a lot of people are like, well, then what? Because now people are confused, like, well, what's canon, what's not? Especially since now they're bringing in a lot of stuff from the EU.
Yeah.
Like Thrawn.
Thrawn is, yeah, so he wasn't exclusively...
And so while they started expanding on his canon story more, it's like, well, what part of his story is canon, which part's not? So I think by releasing the comics for free that came out, like, you know, after, like, later than the last 5 years, they should probably release what's canon or not, just so people can get a good idea of what it is.
I think that's a really good idea, actually, but to me, this brings me to my point of Star Wars and just, I guess, the MCU now are the two main franchises, but they're so much bigger than that. I mean, it's almost like a way of life, almost.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something you do.
This is the way.
This is the way.
You know what my favorite part about the prequels were?
What?
It's like, it wasn't like, you know, the choreography, the Anakin's role. It was how it kind of showed how, like, a republic or democracy can turn to a dictatorship. Like, everyone's like, I hate the politics. I love the politics.
I think people back then weren't as willing to sit through politic talk as they are now.
Because I think it's like Star Wars politics are very similar to, like, politics today.
Well, they have the Senate and the...
It's like you have the Senate, you have all this, but then it kind of like... It showed it, like, you know, the republic weakening, then you have, like, this a guy who will later be a dictator, you know, coming out and spewing, like, telling people what they want to hear,
right?
Slowly gaining power, and then once that guy gets too much power, you know, the republic crumbles. It's kind of hard to explain just because of how in depth they went into the politics of Star Wars, but it's very similar to politics today.
Right, and the problem is they were so distracted with war, they couldn't see. And
it's like, another thing, I'm sorry, I know people love Jedi, the Jedi Order, and all the Jedi. They deserved to fall.
They were wrong.
They deserved to lose at the end of Episode 3.
That was one I can remember, like, growing up. Like, growing up is realizing that Jedi were wrong. They were not right. They weren't right.
It's like, you know, they got too involved in politics. They
said they would never become generals, just keepers of the peace.
It's like they were bad generals. Like that's a point. That's one thing that, like, Clone Wars expanded on, is that they weren't generals. They shouldn't have been leaders of the clones. They were the reason the clone army had such big casualties. They
got them killed.
It's like they were ignorant. They're super ignorant to the dark side. It's like
they're like, well, the Sith aren't back.
It's like Mace Windu is kind of hypocritical. Like, you know, he's like, oh, you shouldn't have the dark side, but he uses the dark side when he fights.
Right.
Like, he's the perfect balance of light and dark. But yet he doesn't want any dark side tendencies. Yoda, love Yoda.
He gives Anakin the worst advice.
He's supposed to be wise, but he was foolish in the prequels.
He's pretty dumb.
He's like he gave Anakin the worst advice to let go. It's like...
You're like, you should just let her die, actually. He's like, you should celebrate when she dies.
It's like, what? That's not what Yoda should be saying. It's like, you know... It's like, when Anakin says, well, in my point of view, the Jedi are evil, in a way, they kind of are.
They're not right. I don't think they're evil. I know they're not right.
What they did, how they treated Anakin throughout the whole thing is foolish. Like, he's the chosen one, and you're not...
They shunned him.
And you shunned him.
They were too rule-laden. They were so rule-laden that they couldn't see past it.
They're a cult.
Right.
Like, that's what they are. A religious cult.
Yep. And, like, the whole thing of, like, believe it or not, I actually think one of the better quotes is when Anakin's talking to Padme of, like, well, we have to be empathetic to people's feelings and put ourselves in each other's shoes. And he goes, we're almost encouraged to love. And they are. Like, as a communication/psychology guy.
Yeah.
Those are, like, the principles that love stands on.
And I mean, like, look how they get the people of their order. They take Force-sensitive children from their family and force them to join a cult.
Yep.
Like, that's wrong.
Red flag.
So many levels.
Red flag.
And I think that's what George Lucas was trying to do. He was trying to show, like, the Jedi Order aren't correct in every way.
Necessarily
like, they
outstanding
have, like,
good.
Their heart's in the right way, but how they acted during the Clone Wars kind of showed that the Jedi Order needed to fall. And that's they expanded on that in the sequels. Like, whenever they're like, well, I want to rebuild the Jedi Order, Luke's like, no, the Jedi deserve to lose. They became ignorant to the dark side. They needed to embrace the dark side more.
Well, Anakin's kind of right.
Teach the dark side.
Right.
They need, like, to get a better understanding of the Force, you need to at least teach some
You need to
parts
know
of the dark
both
side.
sides of the coin.
Yeah.
You do. And it's like, well, I'm not going to follow the dark side. I just want to know what it's all about, man.
Like, they feared the dark side when they should have more understood the dark side.
That's why Star Wars is the best. Like, I'm sorry, you could sit here and talk about, what if this happens?
Oh,
and
Marvel's better. Well, it's not.
Marvel, I just don't think it has that. Like, the MCU is great, but Star Wars has its own universe that, like, you could go on for hours about.
Yeah, it's just so many different. I just love Star Wars.
It's such a deep, almost non-intentionally, but it's a kind of a philosophical type thing.
Like, you can tell Star Wars stories till the end of time because it's a whole universe. You can just continue to make more planets, different races of aliens. Oh, you can just do so much with it, and you'll never run out of stories because you can continue to expand. To where, like, the Marvel, they're kind of limited they're going to end up being limited at what they can do at some point.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing is, like, with Star Wars, you have established characters, you have perhaps new characters coming. There's, like, okay, talk about Black Chrysanthemum for a bit. He comes from the comics, but how many people actually knew about Black Chrysanthemum?
Just the hardcore fans.
Right, and now I'm like, okay, live action debut. Now he's real.
Yeah.
Which sounds dumb because, like you said, the comics are canon, but to me...
Yeah, some comics are.
To me, they're not really, like, canon. The canon. Boop, boop,
yeah.
Until they make their live action.
It's like they're on the second
debut.
level of the Star Wars iceberg.
Like, they exist.
Like, the top of the iceberg is, like, live action movies or, like, stuff like the Clone Wars. And then, like, the second layer in the iceberg is, like, the comics. Like, because not everyone reads the comics when everyone watches the TV shows and movies. And that's why I said they need to come out with, like, Lucasfilms need to come out with an app that posts all the comics so people can get caught up.
I'd do that. I'd read them. I got nothing better to do.
I know I would. And the big difference between the MCU and Star Wars is that, like I said, the MCU will eventually, I think, start running out of ideas because you have to keep it close to the comics because that's the original source material. To where, like, the Star Wars original source materials, the movies.
Right. Everything you want to know about Star Wars.
There's no limit on the kind of story Star Wars can do. There's a limit on what Marvel can do because at some point you have to keep it at least somewhat similar to the comics.
And that's the thing, is that everything, all the source material is obviously the movies, but it's in George Lucas's mind. It's whatever he wants to do with it.
And then even when George eventually passes,
you'll
still be able to have these people tell their own stories on Star Wars just because of how widespread it is.
That's the thing.
It's like if a director wants to come out, hey, I want to make a whole new story revolving around a new bounty hunter we haven't seen before. You can.
That's what they did with The Mandalorian. That's literally what they did.
With Marvel, it's like if you were like, well, I want to tell the story of a brand new superhero. You really can't because
people are like, well, that's not a Marvel superhero.
They're not comic. That's not Marvel.
Right.
To where with Star Wars, it's like, well, they'll embrace it like they have The Mandalorian, there was nothing, no material on The Mandalorian or Din Djarin before the TV show came out.
And that's the thing is that there's nothing new, but throughout the show they have, like, okay, these are recurring characters. And think about it, always like, oh, no droids, because the super battle droids attack his planet, which are from the prequels.
And you know what's another thing Star Wars is getting right? Well, the sequels weren't good, but instead of, like, deleting the sequels, like DC has started doing with a lot of their movies, they're making the sequels better by expanding the universe and timeline that's going on around that time.
I think so. I think, like I said,
It's
Star
like
Wars is
people hated the
number
whole
one.
Palpatine cloning thing at the end, which is weird because that was the same storyline as the DCU, and people just can't get rid, or not the DCU, the EU, and people can't seem to understand that the EU's not canon. But it's like, I didn't like the storyline, but I don't like the EU all that much either.
No.
But it's like, that's one thing Star Wars has done well, is that they're expanding on the Palpatine cloning thing instead of just ignoring it, because it's a huge event.
It is, but at the same time, I think that wasn't where the story was going.
Yeah. It's like,
it felt like it was like out of
what
left
the
field.
sequels did wrong is that they didn't have a 3-movie plan before they started writing. Like, they needed to know what was going to happen in episodes 7 and 8 in order. They needed to have a plan before even making the first movie. Like, you needed a 3-movie plan, and they just didn't have that.
No, I think they were trying to go a different way, and then like Rian Johnson, just good director, but I don't think he just didn't understand Star Wars.
He understood Star Wars.
No, like the whole hyperspace again, the whole Holdo hyperspace thing was like
what took you so long to do that?
Like space fuel was a thing, but it was never really a. I don't know. I guess I just don't buy into the whole. I don't know. I just don't like it. I just don't like 8 and 9 that much.
But like I said, Star Wars is so big, you can continue to build off of the prequels, like branch off from the prequels, and at least make the story a little bit stronger.
Well, and that's the thing now, is that you are getting a lot of separate branches. Like, they're fine. I've waited since I was a kid, but you're finally going to get to see pretty much the end of Kenobi. Like, this is going to be it, more than likely.
They're going to end a story arc because, there's a big time period between the prequels and the original trilogy to, like, where you don't know what happened. It's like, what, a 20.
Well, how old is
period?
Luke?
I think he's
like 17, 18?
17, 18, yeah. It's close to a 20-year period where you don't know what anything that happened during that time. I think the only material that's came out that happens between the sequels or the prequels and the original trilogy is Rogue One, which is like directly right before the
and Solo
and then Bad Batch and Rebels.
Bad Batch is immediately after Revenge of the Sith,
and then Rebels is kind of somewhere in between.
Not sure.
But other than that, you have so much you could tell. It's like Bad Batch, Rebels, and all that are and even Rogue One are all new characters. Like, you have a lot of established characters that you don't know what happened between that time.
I think that's what they should do next, is they should honestly should make a new movie, and then you could...
In my opinion, what Star Wars needs to do next is completely abandon everything that's already been built up in movies. And kind of, like, not like abandon them in like the TV shows or anything like that. They need to continue making like TV spin-offs of it. But the movies they need to come out with are like... They need to go to the beginning. Like, they need to go back to the forming of the Jedi Order, the forming of the Sith. They need to tell those stories. Knights of the Old Republic type stuff. Like, they need to go way back in time.
And that I do agree with. It's just... It's tough. Right now, it's... You're going to have a lot of shows come out right now that are going to be pretty damn good, I think. Oh, yeah. February, I think, is going to be a bit of a lull, but...
Yeah, it's kind of in that weird part now where once the Book of Boba Fett ends, there's not going to be a whole lot coming out for a while because you have to wait till...
Kenobi, I think, is in March.
I don't think Kenobi will be till May because they haven't released
They haven't said anything. They haven't
set a release date, but if they were smart, release it on May 4th.
I would assume that's probably what they'll do.
Give us a new thing on Star Wars Day.
Well, Moon Knight comes out on March 30th, I think.
Okay, so when Book of Boba Fett ends, we'll be able to start Marvel again. Because when does...
it's like a month from now.
When does Doctor Strange come out? June?
I want to say like April.
Is it April? Okay.
It could be. I don't know. We better
We've gotten so much Star Wars and Marvel content over the past month and a half. It's gonna suck when there's a week where something new is not coming out.
And that's why I'm like, they should like wait 2 weeks is what they'll what they should do, give everyone kind of a break when I'm soaking
in my opinion, just hop right into another thing.
See, I think you wait like 2 weeks. Okay, like wait 1 week and then the next week drop it.
I could see that.
But they won't because I'm not employed by Disney. Shocking.
I think we should skip the overrated franchise.
Yeah, I think we kind of ran out of time.
But actually, there's one more topic I want to talk about. I know I'm kind of I didn't warn you of this, but what's your opinion on all these new Microsoft acquisitions in the video game industry? Because in my opinion, people are like, well, this is good for Microsoft in the long run. Well, in my opinion, this is bad for gaming in the long run.
Microsoft makes good games, but I'm not a big fan of when one company acquires a bunch of others. I just don't like it.
Where Sony gets it right is what Sony doesn't go out and acquire studios and then take those already established games and make them exclusive. Sony collabs with these studios and makes original games.
Right.
Where Microsoft is kind of doing is that they're buying established studios and making their already established titles exclusive, even titles that were on established titles on PlayStation. Like the one thing that's starting to kind of piss me off about Microsoft is like, oh, we're gonna buy Bethesda, and now all these original titles that have been established on other gaming systems are just going to be Microsoft exclusives. Like, that's not good for the gaming.
No,
that's not good for gaming in the long run.
I could see it being turning against, like, the way people turn against EA.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sort of
And it's like, what happens with EA now? Like, I could see EA being bought in the next 2 years.
I think so.
It's like, because Sony is, at one point, going to have to cave and start buying studios like they're doing. Because ultimately, Microsoft's getting, in my opinion, this Activision deal almost shouldn't go through because
it's monopoly.
That's getting really close to monopoly.
I don't know how Disney can acquire things.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't understand that either.
I don't know how they bought Fox.
No, I guess I'm just not a big fan of monopolies is the way I should word it. I don't like when one company can control everything and all that.
Microsoft is getting awfully close to that now in the gaming industry.
They are.
Like, that's a big share. They just purchased, I think, like, the biggest studio acquisition before this Activision thing was like $11 billion. And I think that's when Microsoft bought, like, the studio Bethesda, like, the studio that, or the company that owns Bethesda was like $11 million. They just paid $69 billion for Activision Blizzard, and then King is also included in that. That's 3 huge gaming studios. Like King, they have a huge thing on the mobile game game side. They have like Candy Crush, they have stuff like that. Where Blizzard has like a lot of, like, they make a lot of the Star Wars games. They made a lot of stuff like that. And then Activision had, COD, huge franchise like that. It's like, that's not good. That won't be good for the gaming industry in the long run. It's great for Microsoft because, they're basically now a monopoly. But not good for gamers in the long run because now I'm not the biggest fan of console wars. Like, I don't think established titles or titles that have been established on other gaming systems should be made into exclusives because that just isolates a huge number of fans.
It should mean something.
I don't mind with Microsoft with Halo. Halo's an original creation by Microsoft. They were made to be exclusive. That's fine. Halo's fine. Same thing with like Sony when it's like God of War or the Spider-Man series. Those were all originally exclusive to Sony. But I'm not a fan of like these studios being acquired by companies and then their already established titles being made into exclusives. Like, if The Elder Scrolls is exclusive to Xbox, I think that's wrong.
I think so too.
Because they've already had a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation audience, and now you're kind of putting you're almost slapping the entire Sony audience in the face by like, oh yeah, you may love this studio, but hey, we're gonna go take it. Now you can't play it.
Well, I will have to ask my resident expert that I live with, but I'm just not a fan of monopolies, and I think you are almost isolating a big part part of your customers in that aspect of like, well, you shouldn't just make it exclusive for this. I think they're buying with the intention of opening, but
I think they're buying so they can eliminate competition, which I don't think they will do with Sony, because Sony is just way
so
bigger
big.
than, or the PlayStation's just way bigger than Xbox, and I don't think Xbox kills PlayStation by any means. I just don't like what it's going to do to the gaming community, is that you're going to be isolating so much. Like, it's not going to happen, but imagine if Xbox is like, COD's going to be a Xbox exclusive now.
Oh, the world would riot.
That would be bad.
That would be quite
that sets
bad.
that sets a precedent for now, because then Sony's going to have to start playing
Dirty.
after that. Like, what's next? Is Sony going to purchase EA and be like, well, Madden, FIFA, even like, because I know they have Star Wars games till 2024. Imagine if they bought EA and were like, oh, now all those EA titles are going to be exclusive.
And be not a happy camper.
Like, that would just be bad. I'm not a fan of it, and I guess I just want to talk about it a little bit before.
Yeah, I'm like, I keep checking my phone here. I got a haircut at noon. So
yeah, so we'll do a quick sign off then.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening to today's episode of Prestin Sexton. I think this is episode 11 now, so double digits, baby.
Oh yeah.
Double digits.
Hell yeah.
And one of our longer episodes, so thanks for keeping with us till the end. You know, like us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram at Prestin Sexton Podcast. You know, follow us on Spotify for all you Spotify fans. You've been knocking it out of the park lately. Share this podcast with your friends and family. You know, continue to help us grow. And, well, I'm Preston Newville, sitting across from me, Gabriel Sexton. We say thank you, and we're now signing off.